Today we're going to go over using the quadratic formula. So before we are using the quadratic formula with this given example, first let me write out the formula. The quadratic formula is x equal negative b plus and minus b squared minus 4 times a times c. All of this is inside the square root, and the whole thing divided by 2a. So that's the quadratic formula. Now, what we're going to do with this equation is, first, for any type of equation, you want to make sure that your a, your b, and your c, again, a is the one in front of x squared, the b is in front of x, and c is the number. You want to make sure everything is on the right side or the left side. So either on the right side or the left side. And the other side of the equation is equal to 0. So let's take a look at our first example. 2x squared minus 3x plus 5 equals 4. So you can see that majority is on the left side of the equal sign. So what I need to do is cancel out this 4. So the opposite of 4 is minus 4 on the right, therefore minus 4 on the left with the number. So it's going to be 2x squared minus 3x. 5 minus 4 will be just plus 1 equal to 0. So when one side is 0, next you're going to identify your ABC. So A is 2, your B is negative 3, and your C is positive 1. So, just like how we did in 4.1, 4.2, 4.3, you gotta identify your ABC. And here's why. Because now you're going to be plugging in your A value into here, your B value into here, and your C value into the quadratic formula. So before you identify ABC, you gotta make sure everything is on the same side of the quadratic equation, and then the other side is equal to 0. So again, before you identify your ABC, make sure everything is on the same side, and then the other side of the equal sign is 0. Now, I'm gonna plug in my B, A, and C values. The one thing you always gotta watch out for is your signs. So make sure you input your values correctly and carefully when dealing with negatives. And then the second thing you gotta watch out for is doing arithmetic math, like the square and the minus and the multiplication, especially with the square root. Alright, so following the quadratic formula, x equal my negative. Now I'm going to put my b value. So here, watch out, because my b is negative 3. Since I have a negative in the formula, I'm going to put parenthesis negative 3, close parenthesis, plus and minus. So I'm going to put my b squared, so I'm going to put in my negative 3 squared minus 4. My a is 2, so I'm going to put in 2. And then my c is 1. While the whole thing is inside the square root. And divided by 2 times my a, which is also 2. Now, again, I mentioned about be very careful with your signs, because I've seen mistakes where the negatives were forgotten when finding axis of symmetry or finding the y value of the vertex. Negative will play a big part when solving the work, and again the y value. Alright, so let's do this one step at a time. So negative 3 is just positive 3 plus and minus. Now negative 3 squared, that simply means negative 3 times negative 3. So it's going to be positive 9. Next is going to be minus 4 times 2 times 1. So 4 times 2 is 8. 8 times 1 is just 8. So I can write minus 8. inside the square root over 2 times 2 is 4. Now I'm going to simplify inside the square root. So I still have the 3 plus and minus. 9 minus 8 will be the square root of 1 over 4. Alright? So the square root of 1, which I'm going to write over here since I have little space, 3 plus and minus, the square root of 1 is simply just 1 over 4. And that's it. So that's all you have to do when plugging in your ABC value, and then just work out the math inside the square root and the denominator, and be very careful with your sign. And once you finish simplifying inside the square root and then doing the square root, then you're going to have something like this. When you have numbers like that, what you're going to do, since you have the plus and minus, that means you're going to split it into two parts. Now my first part, I'm going to work with the plus. So it's going to be 3 plus 1 over 4. And then the second one is the minus right here. So I'm going to write 3 minus 1 over 4. So my numbers stay the same as the original. 1, 1, 1, and then 4. The only difference is that this one has a plus from the original, and this one right here has a minus from the original. So what we're going to do, the first one, 3 plus 1, I'm going to write 4, and then my denominator is 4. 4 divided by 4 will be just positive 1. Next, I'm going to do the second one. So 3 minus 1 is 2, and I still have my denominator, which is 4. 2 divided by 4, you can simplify that into 1/2. So my solution is x equals to 4 comma 1 over 2. That's my solution, and that's all you have to do. I'm going to box this up. So x equals 4 and 1/2. Those are your two solutions. Just like finding the solution of the graph, you have two answers. X equals 4 and x equals 1/2. That's what you have to do. In the second example, we have 2x squared plus x minus 25 equals negative 4x. So again, before we identify our ABC, we want to make sure everything is on the same side. Majority is on the left side, so I'm going to cancel out the negative 4x and have it on the left side. So plus 4x and then plus 4x. Combine like terms, so x plus 4x will be plus 5x, and then minus 25 equal to 0. When one side is 0, I'm going to identify our ABC. So A is 2, B is 5, C is negative 25. Alright, so next we're just going to plug in ABC into the quadratic formula. X equal, so my negative from the formula and my B value is just 5, plus and minus, so B squared, so that means 5 squared minus 4 times my A, which is 2, times C, which is negative 25. Inside that square root, the whole thing divided by 2 times 2 because of my A value. Alright, now we're just going to simplify. So negative 5 stays the same. Plus minus 5 squared, that means 5 times 5, so 25. Now, this is where we have to be very careful. So my negative 4 times 2, that's negative 8. And then negative 8 times negative 25, that's going to be positive 200. And then let me write my square root on this. So from there, I'm going to divide the whole thing by 4. So again, if you have a question about how I got that 200, because if I look at this one, so negative 4, because the minus right here, times 2 times negative 25. What I did was these two numbers first, so that's my negative 8 times negative 25. Remember, negative times negative is positive, and then 8 times 25 is like 8 quarters, $2, so it's going to be a positive 200. So that's how I got the 200. Now, I'm going to write over here, so negative 5 plus and minus 25 plus 200 will be 225. And then when you do the square root of 225, which is a perfect square number, so it's going to be negative 5 plus and minus 15 over 4. Alright, just like in the last example, what I'm going to do is I'm going to split into two fractions. My first fraction will be the one with the plus. So it's going to be negative 5 plus 15 over 4. And then the second fraction will be the minus. So negative 5 minus 15 over 4. Alright, so the first fraction, negative 5 plus 15 will simply be 10, and then over 4. You can simplify that because both of them are even numbers. It will simplify into 5 over 2. Now, for the second fraction, negative 5 minus 15, that will be negative 20 over 4. Negative 20 divided by 4 will be negative 5. So, my final answers will be x equal 5 over 2, positive 5 over 2, comma, negative 5. So my two answer is 5 over 2 and negative 5. And then I'm just going to box my final answer. And that's all you have to do. Now the one thing you have to be very careful, again, is your negatives. So my negative 4, again, since it's minus 4, I count it as a negative. So negative 4 times 2 is negative 8. And then I did negative 8 times negative 25, which was positive 200. So I put plus 200. So be very careful because in the past I have students where they did only the numbers. And if they only did the numbers, they should have gotten negative 200. They would have put minus negative 200, which will simplify into plus 200. But I put in simple terms where I use the minus 4 as a negative 4 times 2, which is negative 8. Then a negative 8 times negative 25 would be a positive 200. If it's positive, I just write plus 200, just like that. So again, be very careful with your signs. In this example, we have x squared plus 2x minus 7 equals negative x squared plus 7x. So, again, we were trying to get everything on the same side. Majority is on the left side, so I'm going to try to get my negative x squared and my plus 7x to the other side. So I need to cancel out this negative x squared, which is plus x squared. So I'm going to add this x squared to this x squared. I want to cancel out the plus 7x, so that's going to be minus 7x. So my like terms will be over here, so minus 7x. So x squared plus x squared will be 2x squared. 2x minus 7x will be minus 5x, because 2 minus 7 is negative 5. And then I bring down the minus 7. Everything will cancel out, so on the right side will be 0. Alright, so identify my A, B, C. So A is 2, B is negative 5, and C is negative 7. Alright, so what we do is plug in ABC into the quadratic formula. So x equal, so don't forget your negative from the formula, and then my B. So be extra careful because my B is negative. So parenthesis, negative 5, close parenthesis, plus and minus, my B squared. So negative 5 square minus my 4 times my A, which is 2, times my C, which is negative 7. The whole thing divided by 2 times A, which is 2. Alright, so negative 5 will become positive 5 plus and minus negative 5 squared. That means negative 5 times negative 5, which will be positive 25. Now, minus 4 times 2, I'm going to do this one step at a time. So that's negative 8 times negative 7 inside the square root over 2 times 2 is just 4. And then continuing, so it's going to be 5 plus and minus 25. Now we're going to do negative 8 times negative 7, which will be positive 56 over with the square root and then over 4. So it's 25 plus 56 inside the square root. So we're going to combine the numbers inside. So I'm going to write it over here because no more space. So 5 plus and minus 25 plus 56, that will become 81 inside the square root over 4. So I can still simplify. 5 plus and minus the square root of 81 is just 9 over 4. Alright, now I simplify the whole thing after plugging in my ABC into the quadratic formula. The first fraction will be the plus. So 5 plus 9 over 4. The second fraction will be 5 minus 9 over 4. Alright, so our first fraction, 5 plus 9, that would be 14 on the numerator, and then I still have my denominator, which is 4. You can simplify the fraction because 14 and 4 are both even number. You can divide the top and bottom by 2, which will become 7 over 2. Now the second fraction, 5 minus 9, that will be negative 4 in the numerator. My denominator stays the same, which is 4. Negative 4 divided by 4 will be negative 1. So, my answers, my two answers, will be x equal 7 over 2, comma, negative 1. So those are my two answers. X equals 7 over 2 and x equals negative 1. And that's your final answer for this example. So in this example, we actually had to cancel out two terms from the right side, the negative x squared and the plus 7x. So I combined the x squared with the x squared like terms, and then I combined the 7x with the 2x like terms. and then make sure that the right side or the other side of the equal sign is 0. Identify ABC. And again, be very careful with your negatives. The most important thing is be very careful with your negatives, and then the arithmetic with, like, for example, 25 plus 56, make sure you add correctly. Same thing, make sure you subtract correctly in the future.